I'm up here on the west mesa of the Mesilla Valley down here in southern New Mexico state. I'm out here in search of the old Butterfield Trail, which was an overland mail route that was established in the late 1800s. Figured it'd be cool to come out here, connect with the trail, follow it for as long as I can through this cool desert terrain, do some modern day overlanding myself out here on a historical overland route. According to the GPS files that I were able to find online, marking the rough estimate of the old wagon trail, the trail came up out of Mesilla Valley through this area here, what is known as Box Canyon. Runs just north of Picacho Peak here in Mesilla Valley, and then heads west out across some very arid desert. I believe what this is an old tanker car from a train, and the ranchers will get these and bring them out here into the middle of nowhere, no man's land out here on these ranches, and set them up as stock tanks, collect water, be able to water the cows that roam out here open range. We're going to pause this video here for just a moment. We're going to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is Squarespace. Now, Squarespace is an all-in-one online website platform that allows entrepreneurs like you or me to create our own custom professional looking website. Now, squarespace.com offers hundreds of templates that allow very easy and useful creation of any sort of website that you might be thinking of. Matter of fact, it's so simple that you don't have to have any previous web design background in order to make your custom professional looking website. I've got a website that I built for my still photography. If you guys are interested in checking that out, it's over at www.chadderosa.com. That's a website that I made with Squarespace, and it showcases some of my still photography. So if you guys are interested in making all of your website dreams come true, head on over to squarespace.com/livingthevanlife. Matter of fact, they've given me the opportunity to save you 10% off of your first purchase at Squarespace by entering the coupon code LIVINGTHEVANLIFE. Special thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. So I've been trying to stick to the old original overland route of the Butterfield Trail as it made its way up out of Mesilla Valley. Unfortunately, the original trail is pretty sparse out here through the desert. It gets into some arroyos, ends up being some pretty rough and rugged terrain. Makes it a challenge to get a four-wheel drive vehicle back in here at the moment, but it goes to show how amazing it was for these old-time travelers to have made it through here in wagon trains when they had a fraction of the technology and the gear available to them. Looks like this sign is from around 1993, and it's talking about one of the local ranches that graze cattle out here, and talking about adding the stock tank here, which I'm walking into now. The interesting thing is, though, there is nothing left of any sort of stock tank. There's quite a bit of flooding damage from the flash floods that'll happen during the big thunderstorms. But there's definitely no way of getting the Sprinter van back in here, and there's not really any reason to either. But the old trail would have come right through this area. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to make it through with the van, and we'll just have to pick it up later on down the line. You can see here where they've built a levee across here, and over here behind me would have been a wash coming down into here. Eventually would have filled this up with water and provided a reservoir for the cattle and for the wildlife to drink from. Looks like at one point, perhaps major thunderstorm or multiple would have built up enough water to where it eventually overflowed through this area and then just cut out this giant swath back to its original path. No more stock tank. Damn. The power of the water as it flows through here is just incredible. The way it's just able to cut through the soil out here like a mini Grand Canyon. I'm trying to find a way across the way over here so I can go check out the original trail. As I'm walking out through these areas, I'm also keen to keep an eye out for artifacts. There is a lot of Native American history out here with the Apaches and other Indians, but then also even goes back to prehistoric times. So in these washes, it can be a good opportunity to find some artifacts. So definitely keeping an eye open for that. And rattlesnakes as well. This is interesting, some sort of rodent nest going on here. You can see where they've collected the cow patties and integrated it into their structure. That's creativity right there. Well, according to that GPS information that I was able to find online about the original trail, it appears that this right here would have been the old overland mail route of the Butterfield Trail as it made its way out across here from the Mesilla Valley. When we talk about overlanding with four-wheel drive vehicles, the original overlanders, they were out here in stagecoaches and wagon trains fighting the Apache Indians, battling the hot, harsh desert conditions with a hell of a lot less than what we've got in today's standards. It's pretty cool to be out here. It's interesting to stop and imagine a time where you'd be standing out here when a team of horses or mules came through with a stagecoach full of mail, full of passengers, full of settlers moving westward. Hard to imagine the time, but it's cool that there's at least some sort of remnants to come here, explore, and think back on. It's a good example of how harsh the conditions can be out here in this desert. Looks to be remnants of some cattle that didn't make it through. I'm sure they were feasted upon by the many coyotes and other animals that are out here. Lots of debris scattered out around here in this particular site. Sprinter van all the way through and linked up to this portion of the Butterfield Trail. So I'm circling back out and around to another point further down the trail out west where I'll be able to link up and experience this route firsthand in the Sprinter van. Now this section that we just drove along this fence would have been one of the original alignments of the old trail. Would have come right out through here. You can see here the road splits off, heads off to the left. The original trail would have ran pretty much straight through here. If we can see way off in the distance, there's a tower on top of a mountain, and just below that to the left is what they call the Good and Ready Gap, and that's where one of the stations were out on the Butterfield Trail. So that's the direction we're going to go. Unfortunately, we can't take the old trail. We're going to have to go off to the left here. So here we've made it onto a good section of trail. We're able to truck right along here with the van on this old Butterfield Trail. Unfortunately, we're only able to go so far where the dirt road veers back over to the main road. But you can see here off in the distance where the trail continues on up ahead to the Rough and Ready Gap. This would have been the original alignment of the Butterfield Overland Trail. I was just driving along the old trail here and spotted this pile of rocks. It appears to have been placed there very specifically. Now, I'm by far no expert on any of this, but in a lot of the historical accounts that I've been reading over the last couple of weeks, there's lots of accounts of where people were buried just on the side of the old Butterfield Trail. Whether it was dying of the harsh conditions, perhaps an ambush by the Apaches, which happen quite often out here in this terrain, and they would just bury the bodies alongside the trail. And back then they did that by piling rocks on top of the body. And it is known fact that some of these grave sites can still be seen today. Who knows? Could this be perhaps a gravesite of someone who passed out here on the old trail? Pretty interesting, nonetheless, the things you see out here on the old Butterfield Trail. And as I stood up there, I kind of scanned the horizon, and I actually noticed a second pile of rocks here, maybe 20-30 yards away. Pretty interesting indeed. Who knows? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts though. If anybody out there thinks that perhaps these could potentially be the grave sites of somebody who passed, or what else could it be? So this would have been the site of the Rough and Ready station. We just passed through the Rough and Ready Gap out here by the Rough and Ready Mountains. This would have been a station where the stagecoaches came in for fresh horses, water, food, a rest after making it up out of Mesilla Valley. And from here, they start out across some very arid and remote terrain of this southwestern New Mexico desert. Currently, all that remains is an old dilapidated windmill that is set up here from the ranchers in order to pump water into the stock tanks for the cattle that now graze out through this area. As I'm out here and I snoop around, I think about what it must have been like to have been stationed out here at the Rough and Ready, waiting for the next stagecoach to arrive, and then to see it on the horizon coming up. What it must have sounded like, the team of horses and the wagon, what the conversations must have been like. Interesting thoughts, especially when you're out here all by yourself, nothing to think about besides what it must have been like way back when. Now the light is fading quick. I want to get back on the trail, go find a good camp spot for the evening before it gets too dark. was out here scrounging around looking for some deadfall that might be lying around out here, and I tell you what, it's hard to come by. There again, another example of the challenges you would have faced on horseback out here, and that's a good example of why they had the stations set out throughout here. You would want to necessarily stay out here without the shelter. I did bring some firewood, but I thought I'd preserve it by getting some deadfall out here. this is a cool opportunity to share a bit of a childhood memory. I remember coming out here circa 1986, 1987. As I mentioned before, my grandfather was really into, let's say, treasure hunting. He did a lot of research in the local library about the history of what went on out here with these wagon trains. Now, bear in mind, this is before a time where we could go on Google and have all that information at our fingertips. So he spent time in the library researching old newspaper articles, old historical accounts of what went on out here. And of course, it was before there was any GPS information of sites like this. So him and a couple of his friends set out here to discover these places like where I'm at right now. Now, when my grandfather took us out here in the 80s, he knew it as Mason's Draw. But today, as I do my research, I see on the internet that this particular site here is known as Mason's Fort or Mason's Ranch. So this became a common stop for the stagecoach as it made its way from Rough and Ready over to the Good Sight Station, which was another section of mountains over from here. This became an important stop to refresh on water, food, rest, shelter, and to perhaps switch up horses on the wagon train. I have memories as a kid walking out through the remains of this old way station, probably 8, 9, 10 years old, some 35 years ago, walking around out here looking for artifacts. And that's the cool thing, even yet today there is still all sorts of goodies lying on the ground. It's a lot of broken glass, it's a lot of tin cans, but it's all stuff from the late 1800s. So it's cool that you can come out here and still find some of this stuff. Now, this is all out on BLM, public lands, so by law, you're not allowed to take artifacts. So the cool thing is a lot of it is still here for people to come out and enjoy. But as you can tell, this is all way the heck out here, and there's not a lot of people that actually come out here and visit this. Just a small handful of people. See remnants of the original structure here. Looks like most likely would have been a room built out of adobe. And with adobe, it's made out of mud, rocks, some grass and sticks to help hold it all together. So eventually over time, weather takes its toll. Rain, wind slowly erodes it away. But here we're able to still come and see some of what was left behind. This looks to be perhaps a fireplace made out of stone. Even before the stagecoaches and the wagon trains made their way through this area, there was a lot of Native American activity. So it's not uncommon to find remains of the tools that they were making, or areas where they were making tools. You find the shards left behind. Matter of fact, in the 80s, when we were out here snooping around, my mom actually found a true, authentic arrowhead that had been churned up in one of the washes. Definitely worth keeping an eye out. I could certainly spend days out here scouring the ground looking for artifacts. There's got to be more to find, just not enough time in the day. Got a lot more trail to cover, a lot more trail to go. Wow, this is quite the interesting structure here. Appears to be some sort of old ranch house. I'm way out here in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody else around, so this house would have been very, very remote for anybody to live here. I'm gonna cruise inside and snoop around, check it out. Well, either way, it's kind of creepy to be out here way out in the middle of nowhere and find a place to just sit in here. Who knows the stories that this place holds? Interesting to stop and take a look though. It's definitely not a content feeling, that's for sure. It's time to jump back in the van and hit the road. Been bushwhacking my way back in through this gap and found these ruins here. This isn't even on any sort of maintained road. Some sort of old stone building. You can see the remnants of a doorway that would have been here. Who knows what this would have been? Well, as you guys can tell, off to the west, that light is fading quickly. The sun is about to dip over that horizon, bringing an end to this day. With that being said, I think that's a wrap on this episode of Living the Van Life. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure and hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment in the section down below. Leave me your feedback. You guys like to see more videos like this, just out exploring old historic sites. Some of the stuff that I've been interested in throughout my years of being down here in the desert. All right, guys, I'm out of here. We'll see you guys on the next Living the Van Life adventure. Peace out. Keep on trucking.